Hello, folks, and welcome back to another episode of the Daily Crypto Byte. Today is Thursday, March 17th, and we've got some exciting price action to talk about, particularly AVAX leading the charge. But overall, things looking positive. We had some interesting news coming out of the Ukraine regarding digital currencies and their President Zelensky signing a bill into law. So we'll talk about that and a few more things. But before we get started, CJ, how are you doing today, my friend?
Doing well, Monty. Looking a little bit more bullish here over 41K. See how the indices are doing. Yeah, everything up a little bit today. NASDAQ about 0.5%. Oil up 7%. So
Yeah.
big move in that one. But yeah, interesting market conditions this morning. Excited to get into it. How are you doing, my friend?
Yeah, I'm doing well, CJ, doing well. This market does feel like it's starting to pick up a little bit of steam here. Things, especially for Bitcoin, were relatively quiet to kind of, start this week and over the weekend, but it does feel like things are picking up here. We're up testing, upward resistance channels and, retesting some critical levels here. So lots to talk about today and ready to dive into it. You want to start with some charts?
Yeah, let's do that. Yeah, pretty bullish close last night, I must say.
Oh, yeah.
So high volume bullish engulfing candle off of support. We're still going into tough resistance here at 41K. This entire channel of roughly the blue highlighted zone from anywhere from 41K to 44K has been pretty strong resistance. We've had succinct rejections each time we've really tried to test that level. If we get above this level and consolidate and break out, that's when I'm really going to get excited and look for continuation up into the 50s or even 55K. And then at that point, we can talk about other levels. But I think there's a lot of really interesting things. We got the bullish cross going on the MACD. We finally have broken above the zero line. So really, it's all about breaking through this resistance and creating a higher high beyond our previous one. As you can see, this bearish engulfing candle just completely rejected this previous candle. But if we get above that, it really opens the door for like tension to increase between buyers and sellers. Like the ascending triangle, you're going to have a lot of volatility at the start of it. You're going to have a lot of momentum, wide range, but eventually the range tightens, which means decreasing volatility and higher tension between buyers and sellers until a certain point reaches where, the dominant move occurs, whether it be up or down. But that's ultimately what we're lining up for. And, the more bullish we can get and the higher likelihood we can get through this resistance overall, just the better it's going to be for the trend collectively. But we're still in this range. Not a whole lot to say on the intraday daily charts. So I do want to take a little longer term view, namely with the 1 week charts and some Heikin-Ashi candles. The thing that is quite interesting is that if you go to the 2 week chart, it does a much better job of smoothing out the Heikin-Ashi candles and showing pronounced uptrends and pronounced downtrends. And we still haven't gotten the green candle to flip. If we get one of those, similar to how we got this spinning top at the bottom in July, I think that could be very indicative of, some type of bullish continuation to come. The one thing that I do, I still am a little bit skeptical of is just when you have, the bull market support band, which is, this kind of moving average thing. Then you have the linear regression channels, which are basically like log growth curves. And so when we get pushed up against the support level and we get, when these two levels like come together and squeeze price, you're typically going to get a really large move in either one direction or the other. And in this case, the move was down. But in our particular case, I think we have a pretty decent shot of going either way, especially after making so many continuous higher lows over the past couple of weeks in Bitcoin. I think that bodes well for the bullish trend. But overall, you're going to get that linear regression channel and you're going to get the bull market support band come down here and squeeze price and potentially create a big move, whether that results in capitulation to, say, the 33K level or a breakout beyond 45K. I think, you still have to be diligent and on the ball despite such a lack of volatility recently. It's kind of weird. We were talking about this kind of internally yesterday, how like the market is such a weird state mentally where like every $1,000, $2,000 move it's like, oh, we're back to being bullish, and then it's just like a BART pattern down, and it's like, oh, we're back to being bearish. So a lot of that going on, but I think we're lining up for a big move here in the next couple of weeks, if not
Yeah,
even sooner.
yeah, CJ. I've seen a lot of analysts on Twitter pointing to kind of a volatility squeeze that we're starting to see here with not just Bitcoin, with a lot of assets as well, kind of tightening in this range. So good stuff there. Thank you for that context. One thing I did want to briefly mention, we mentioned at the top of the show here, was this news coming out of the Ukraine this morning that Ukraine has legalized the crypto sector. Their president Zelensky signed a bill into law, and the bill was pretty comprehensive. It talked about exchanges' rights to establish business operations within the country. Also, which governing bodies have the right to regulate cryptocurrencies. They went with the same governing body that regulates their securities and their stock exchange. So this is a big step forward. Obviously, over the last couple of months, lots of donations in crypto have poured in to the Ukraine. So not too surprising to see this bill being signed into law. Following that sort of move, but. Moving on, CJ, one thing I did want to get to that Mark has been pointing out in the comments, and it's not just today. I've seen him talking about it for the last couple of weeks here, is Ethereum. And, Ethereum really starting to make a move. And CJ, we've been talking about this kind of, range we've been establishing where we're putting in this upward sloping trend line, putting in higher lows with nice supply absorption on these wicks, which is indicative of increasing demand at these higher levels. Here we came back down, and we really did start to kind of consolidate in this range, trade in a really tight range. But today, for the first time, CJ, we are breaking above that downward sloping trend line that's been acting as the top crux of this triangle here, and we've been kind of pinching in to this precipice, and now are starting to break out. So one thing that we've been talking a lot about is what to look for here on this breakout. And as you can see, we got above this level, already have somewhat tested it as support. We saw some consolidation, saw buyers stepping in at this level and are climbing higher. So now that, we're back above this level, I wouldn't be too surprised to see it, maybe retested one more time as support, perhaps with a rejection off 3K. But ultimately, what the clear pattern is here is I would like to see us, establish a lower high here, get above this critical 3K level in the interim. That would tell me that, perhaps we are starting to see signs of bullish momentum. Buyers are stepping back in, and perhaps we are ready to climb back into the high 3K range for ETH. So, now that we're seeing these favorable signs of higher lows breaking out of this downward sloping trend line, that to me is very favorable, and I think is another sign that perhaps we are ready for some positive price action in not just Bitcoin, but in ETH as well. So just wanted to keep an eye on, we see you in the comments, Mark. Don't worry.
Don't say I haven't told you. Yeah, 3K is so essential for ETH. That's really been the critical level, and thank you for pointing that out. I also do want to talk a little bit just on the. I wanted to say something on the monthly chart and apply to both Bitcoin and ETH, because, obviously, when you look at monthly Heikin-Ashi candles, you can see a very pronounced bear trend, very pronounced bull trend, and not a whole lot of fake out signals. When you get a print of a green candle, typically it's going to be followed by bullish price action. We've only had a couple, exceptions. For instance, the COVID low here in March. So, if you look at this and what we've done in the last 3 months in both Bitcoin and ETH, sure, we've had red candles, but each low, each one has created a higher low within these previous 3 months. And, we're shaping up to have somewhat of a decent bullish hammer candle at the bottom of a downtrend following the end of the month. So typically that can be seen and interpreted as fairly bullish price action. You can see we're already starting to push up against that monthly resistance on Bitcoin and create, those higher lows as well. So typically when you see that, like for instance, what we saw in the summer during those lows around 29, 30K, you start creating higher lows on the monthly chart and things can start to turn around and become more bullish. That's kind of what we saw back here in the depths of the bear market as well. So trying to remain flexible with either just a big move to the upside or the downside, but it definitely seems like, volatility is being squeezed. Tension is forming between buyers and sellers. A lot of the tourists have left, so to speak, for the short term. I'm sure they'll be back once prices increase, or if they do. Um, so yeah, it's probably going to be a big move in one direction or another.
Yeah, CJ, one asset that is already showing signs of a big move, and we briefly hinted at this at the start of the show, is AVAX. Absolutely ripping to the upside today. As you can see here, coming up to about $82 before getting rejected, about 81.50, pulling back a little bit, but still looking very strong. Nice bullish volume coming in here today. And one thing I would just like to see is kind of a similar thing we saw with ETH, right? Getting out of this downward sloping trend line that has ultimately been prevalent all the way since the market top in November. So we are starting to see signs of that rounding bottom. We were a little bit concerned here on March 14th when we kind of failed to put in a higher low. But now that we're seeing signs of positive price action, bullish volume stepping in, positive news catalyst of an AVAX summit later this week. So all of those things working in AVAX's favor. And just like with ETH, I would like to see the same thing, where we get above this downward sloping trend line, come back down and retest it as resistance before climbing higher. But overall, I think the big takeaway is just this very nice uptick in bullish volume today, coming back up to retest critical levels, ultimately looking very, very strong after a somewhat precarious, start of the month for AVAX here. But definitely worth keeping on your radar today as it's up, almost 9%.
I do want to follow up on one more asset before we hit Doge of the day after this, where we go into a lot more trade insights. But we talked about Rune yesterday, Thorchain, and its potential, and it continues to trend here. It's now above that previous resistance level, or I guess really testing it and coming close to it at roughly 835, 840. But look at all that volume. We're still in overbought territory, but we have not turned down yet or shown any weakness. And the next resistance level up ahead that we're looking at is the top of the range at basically $10. So I think that's one definitely to watch for. I haven't jumped in yet, but I'm definitely watching it for a potential dip buying opportunity. I'm really looking for assets like Atom and Rune and a lot of interoperability to potentially play out as the next themes in a potential bull cycle. I'll stop using the word cycle. Let's just say bullish momentum phase of the market. So yeah, but that's about it. I'll leave it with you, my friend.
Thank you, CJ. Yeah, I think that's all we got for today. As always, thank you guys so much for watching. And if you'd like to join CJ and I in our community full of traders, you can do so at the link below me, markrebellion.com/try crypto. We also do a Doge of the day right after this, where we take a more in-depth dive to some various altcoins. But yeah, that's all we got for today. Please don't forget to like and subscribe on the way out. Really helps out the channel. But hope you guys have a great rest of your day and take care.